Welcome. Today we're going to crack open two of the most fundamental concepts in React. The engine that powers so many of the web apps we use every day. We're talking about state and props. If you've ever looked at an app and wondered how it manages all its data to feel so seamless and interactive, well, you're in exactly the right place. Let's dive in.
Really think about it. You click a like button and that counter just instantly goes up. Or you're typing in a search bar and results just start appearing out of nowhere. It feels like magic, right? But it's not. It's just data being managed incredibly well behind the scenes. So the big question is, how do developers actually control that flow of data to make an app feel so alive? The answer, it turns out, lies in understanding two key ingredients.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the core data challenge that React was built to solve. Then we're going to meet our two main characters, props and state. After that, we'll put them head-to-head to really see what makes them different. And we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaway you absolutely need to remember. At its heart, React is all about building your user interface out of these little reusable pieces called components. It's a great idea to think of them like Lego bricks. But, static bricks are pretty boring. The real challenge, the fun part, is making these components dynamic. How do we get data into them, and how do they remember things that are supposed to change over time?
Okay, so our first solution to this puzzle is something called props. Now, the name is just short for properties, and I want you to think of props as messengers. That's it. Their one job is to deliver data from a parent component down to a child component. This is the main way we get information flowing through our application. All right, let's get a more formal definition up here. Props are read-only values passed from a parent down to a child. Now, listen closely, because the two most important phrases there are pass down and read-only. This means the data flow is strictly one way. And the child component that gets the props, it can look at them, it can use them, but it can't change them. No way. And this code example shows it perfectly. We've got a parent component, right? And it's passing down a name prop to its child, the welcome component. Then the welcome component takes that information and uses it to display a message. The key thing here is that the child component didn't just come up with this name. It was giving that information, that prop, from its parent.
So, to wrap up props, here are their key features. They are always passed down from a parent. They are what we call immutable, or read-only once they're inside the child, and they're basically used to set up or configure a component from the outside. I love this analogy. Think of props as a component's birth name. It's given to it by its parent when it's created, and the component itself can't change it.
Okay, that's great for passing data down. But what if a component needs to keep track of its own information? Stuff that changes over time, like whether a box is checked or what a user is typing into a form. For that, we need a whole different tool. So let's meet state, which is basically a component's internal memory.
So here's the deal with state. It's data that a component owns and manages all by itself, internally. And unlike props, state is designed to be changed. It's really the secret sauce that lets a component remember things and react to what the user is doing all on its own. Now, what's so interesting here is that this is a totally different pattern from props. In action, like a user clicking a button, triggers a change directly inside the component's own internal memory. You see, there's no parent component telling it what to do. No one's passing information down. The component is managing its own data and updating itself based on what happens inside of it.
So the key things to know about state are these. It's managed inside the component. It is mutable, which is just a fancy way of saying it can be changed. And this part is absolutely critical. Anytime you change a component's state, it automatically tells React to re-render it, which updates what you see on the screen. So if props are a component's birth name, you can think of state as its mood. It's internal, it's personal, and it can change at any moment.
All right, we've met our two main players. Now it's time for the main event, putting props and state right next to each other to really hammer home the core differences between them. This is where it all clicks.
Okay, let's break this down side by side. Over on the left, we've got props, our messengers. The data comes from an external source, a parent, and that data is immutable, or read-only. The child simply cannot change its own props. End of story. Then on the right, we have state, the component's memory. Here the data is managed internally. It's mutable. It's designed to be changed by the component itself. And it's those changes that trigger updates to the UI. So it all boils down to this. Where does the data come from, and who gets to change it?
We've covered a lot of ground, so let's boil all of this down to the most important points, the stuff you really need to walk away with. This is the fundamental logic of how data works in React. If you only remember one thing from all this, Make it this. Use props when you need to pass data down from a parent to a child. Use state for data that a component needs to remember and change all on its own, like user input or a timer. The data flow in React is always downwards, from parent to child through props. And it's those internal state changes that make your app come alive by triggering updates.
And there you have it, props and state. They're not competing ideas at all. They're two different tools that work together perfectly to build the complex, dynamic apps we use every single day. They are the absolute foundation. So the only question left is, now that you know how they work, what are you going to build with them?